Several suspects armed with hammers zip tie victims in a violent Scarborough home invasion. We're going to have more on the Brazen crime coming up.
Well, a crushing blow. Hundreds of auto workers prepare for temporary layoffs as GM announces a shutdown at its Cami assembly plant in Ingersoll.
And York University is apologizing after it mistakenly sent out emails telling some rejected grad school applicants that they were accepted. We're live on campus with more on what went wrong.
This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thank you for joining us here on Live at 5. We begin tonight with another blow to Canada's auto industry. Hundreds of workers are facing layoffs after General Motors Canada announced it is temporarily halting production at its Cami plant in Ingersoll.
CTV National's Heather Wright is outside of the plant tonight with the details. Oh, okay, Heather, I want to start with this. First, we receive news like this. The first thing that comes to people's mind is, is this tariff related? But more information came out. Can you talk about that and, sort of the reaction once more details were provided?
Absolutely. When we heard that this plant was shutting down, the first thing I think that came to most people's mind was, is this another impact of the auto tariffs that have been imposed by the White House? Now, as we spoke with people here in Ingersoll and also with people with General Motors Canada and the Premier as well, this seems to be not tariff related, but rather has more to do with the product that this plant is producing. It produces EV delivery trucks. These are large delivery trucks that are used by couriers and other companies like that. And frankly, there just is too much supply. The trucks aren't selling that well. And so General Motors is taking this opportunity to shut down the plant to sort of figure things out, try to get things back online, and then the plan is to open the plant back up in the fall. There will be some permanent layoffs once that happens, but in the meantime, there are going to be about 1,200 people out of work starting on Monday. Here's a little bit from the Premier and from the union boss here in Ingersoll on just this impact of shutting down this plant on the town and on the families.
We're going to be there to support them. I understand they're going to keep the one shift going as they come back. We want to build up capacity for them one way or another. Mm-hmm. And this is all about the federal government and the Canada Post requirement for their vehicles. Mm-hmm. They need to start purchasing those vehicles. Let's keep this plant open.
Yeah, it's going to have a deep impact. They say 7 jobs for every one in auto. So yeah, anywhere from our local Tim Hortons, which it seems everybody has to have one on their way into work, to gas stations, to even the real estate, restaurants, everything's getting more expensive. And we do have a lot of younger families in here, married couples. You take away their jobs, it's devastating. It's going to be a tough few days for people to digest this and figure out what's going on in life.
So certainly tough news for the workers here and for the community of Ingersoll. The people we've been speaking with, they point out the fact that this plant has been through a lot. They had COVID. They had the Ambassador Bridge shutdown. There was a chip shortage. And so they have been off work many, many weeks over the last several years. And so this is yet another blow for them. I did speak with people at General Motors of Canada. They do say they are committed to this plant, committed to this vehicle. So there is hope that once things settle down, they can get this plant back up and running in the fall and get more people back to work.
Okay, and Heather, just you threw to a clip of the Premier talking about how he's calling on agencies like Canada Post to order more of the electric vehicles, the van the plant makes. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think Canada Post is one of those first ones that come to mind in terms of government agencies that could use the vehicles that are made here in Ingersoll. They fit very well into, Canada Post vans. And also the fact that the federal and provincial government both put a lot of money into this plan in order to retool it into an electric vehicle plan. And so there are pushes. You heard it from the Premier, also Unifor, the national office. They're encouraging not just the federal government, but other provinces as well to at the very least look at these vehicles as an option when it comes to procuring the next vehicles that are needed. It would help, of course, keep this plant up and running. This is the only plant in all of GM's network that makes these vehicles, but there are a number of them that are sitting idle in lots in the United States, and so there really does need to be a bigger market. But as I mentioned earlier, GM says they are committed to this electric vehicle truck going forward, and the people here, they are very proud to be making these vehicles and anticipate coming back to work in October when the plant reopens.
Yeah, Heather, along with that, you mentioned coming back in October. So, again, just be very specific. Clarification on, is this permanent or temporary?
No, this is temporary. So the plant will shut down starting on Monday. They are going to be coming back in May for a few weeks to do a little bit of work, but generally speaking, it's going to be closed until the fall. Probably October is what we are being told. But keep in mind, there are roughly 1,200 unionized jobs at this plant right now. Roughly 450 will be laid off permanently. So when the plant does reopen in the fall, it will be a smaller workforce than it is right now. So some people will be losing their jobs, but we spoke with the Unifor representatives today, and they're saying that they're going to do their hardest to make sure that people who want to keep their jobs can keep them. They're looking at incentivizing retirement packages, looking for volunteers who would take an early package to shift careers. And so they are hoping that they can get that number lower than the 450 that has been thrown out there and save as many jobs as possible.
Okay, that's going to hurt a lot of families in that community. CTV National's Heather Wright in Ingersoll for us. Thanks for this, Heather. Appreciate it.
Okay, to Scarborough now. This is where multiple suspects, armed with hammers, they actually stormed a townhouse this morning.
Yeah, it's all very disturbing. Police say all of the victims inside that home had their hands bound with zip ties. Let's go live to our crime analyst, Steve Ryan, who's outside that home near McCowan and Finch. Tell us more about this shocking incident, Steve.
Sandhurst Circle is a location, Alina and Bakari. It's a town home at this location. And imagine being a young child and being woken from your sleep at 2:15 in the morning because intruders are in your home armed with hammers and one with a knife. That's exactly what happened this morning, according to police. Now, family tell me that there were 10 people in the home this morning at 2:15. 6 adults and 4 children. I'm also told that one of those that lived in the home was a man who was a jeweler, and he often worked on his jewelry in the house and was known to keep some gold in that house. So this is important information because it certainly suggests that this was a targeted home invasion whereby these armed suspects entered the home and they stole gold and they stole cash. And all 10 of the people in this house, including those 4 young children, were subjected to the terror of having their house broken into at 2:15 in the morning. One of the men was hit in the head with a hammer, and he is still in very serious condition in hospital. There was another man that was injured as well, and he was treated in hospital as well. We heard from Toronto Police earlier on today, and with regards to those zip ties, Lena, here's what the police said they found when they arrived here on scene shortly after 2:15 this morning. That's us.
When officers arrived on scene, they did locate the occupants of the residence with their hands zip tied, and they were able to free those occupants. We can imagine how traumatizing this is for the people who were involved. One occupant was transported to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries after he sustained an injury from the hammer. Another occupant did go to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
It's very scary because we thought that that's a very nice place to live in, and when you hear just next door something like this happen, it scares you. I was not even asleep at last night, but I did not hear anything. I also came out for a walk around the same time because we usually walk late nights in this area, but right now I feel very scared about that. Yeah.
But you didn't see anything overnight? No police cruisers or any unusual activity?
Yeah, nothing. It was like a normal day.
So we can see there's a Ring camera on the front door. Might explain why these multiple suspects entered through the back door as well. Also suggests that there may have been some knowledge as to the layout of this place with regards to the camera as well. And as an investigator, it's always difficult to speak with children during any investigation, let alone one when they're traumatized and you have to sit with them and then have them recall exactly what happened, what they saw, what they heard at 2:15 in the morning. Very sad all around. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ron. Steve, thank you for that. Well, a man's in life-threatening condition in hospital. This is following a shooting in Scarborough.
The shooting is believed to have happened around midnight near this road in the area of Warden Avenue and St. Clair Avenue East. Police say a man in his 20s showed up to a Toronto hospital with a gunshot wound and is now in life-threatening condition. Anybody with information is asked to contact police.
And a Toronto man has been arrested for allegedly posing as a teenage boy in order to have a relationship with a 13-year-old girl.
29-year-old Christian Sonato is facing multiple charges, including sexual assault and sexual interference. Durham police say the relationship began on Snapchat and eventually became physical before the victim found out his real age. Investigators released Sonato's photo because they say they're concerned more people could be impacted.
And London police are still trying to find the mother of a newborn left on her doorstep.
Police were called to a home north of the city's downtown on Wednesday afternoon. This after a baby was found on the front porch. Officers say that baby had a note attached to it saying the mother wasn't able to take care for the child and asking someone to give the baby a good home. That baby was taken to hospital, is in good condition. Police say they're concerned for the welfare of the mother and they're asking for help finding her.
Okay, it's 5:11. Let's get a check on the evening commute with CP24's traffic specialist, Adjoa. No such thing as rush hour in Bois.
You had to give me that moniker, didn't you? Yeah. Spreading bad news is what I don't like to do, but I like to navigate commuters around problems. So you want to avoid the westbound 401 in the collectors, just as you make your way through Dufferin. Here's what's going on. It is a collision that is blocking the right lane and shoulder Lena and Bakari. So drivers need to stick with those express lanes. They seem like they're more jammed, but collectors are where the problems are, and that is what is impacting that drive as far back as Warden. No issues anymore on the DVP, but rain slowing down the drive, and rush hour traffic is as well on the northbound side, starting from about Don Mills up to the 401. This is the view through the Lawrence camera. And if you're headed towards the Gardner, no rain, but busy as you make your way into and actually jammed as you head out of the downtown core. A lot of problems happening on city streets. If your travels take you towards Dundas, it remains closed in either direction between Dufferin and Gladstone. Had a vehicle drive into a pole, and a collision involving a police cruiser up in Brampton still has Sandalwood blocked at Veterans Parkway. I'll send it back to you both.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
It's 5:12, 4 degrees out there. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, coming up, we're going to tell you why York University is apologizing for emails that it sent to grad school applicants.
Toronto Public Health is warning of a potential measles exposure at Coca-Cola Coliseum now.
Yeah, the health agency has issued the warning for people who attended the venue for a concert on April 1st between 5:30 p.m. to midnight. So they're advised to monitor for symptoms until April 22nd. Symptoms include fever, runny nose, cough, red eyes, and most notably, a red rash that begins on the face and then spreads down the body.
Now to a story that a lot of people are talking about. Congratulations on your acceptance. That is the subject line some rejected grad school applicants received from York University recently. And now the school is apologizing, saying it was a big mistake, calling all of it an unfortunate oversight.
Okay, CP24's Melissa Duggan joins us live from the campus tonight with more on how something like this could happen. Melissa, we've just been talking about the anguish that these students would be going through if this happened to them.
Oh, yeah, just the roller coaster of emotion there, because these prospective students were ones that had already gotten a rejection letter and then suddenly in their inbox giving them instructions on what to do next with their graduate program that they will be attending. There's a webinar. Here's some advice how to attend this. So certainly you'd expect some of these applicants would then be reaching out to family and friends saying, hey, turns out I'm in. Now York University is saying, no, you are still not in. The school saying, we regret this unfortunate oversight. It's unclear exactly how many people got this email, kind of giving them these instructions, this celebratory information. The school saying that fewer than half of all graduate program applicants received it. It's unclear how many people actually applied to the graduate program, though, for this university cycle. But we have been talking to students today. Some disappointment, certainly, because they were hoping to continue their studies as graduate students at York University. But unfortunately, it looks like that's not going to happen. I want to share some of their comments. Have a listen.
Well, I received my rejection in January, so I didn't know what to think. At first, I thought the best that somehow someone had reconsidered. But then I thought that the prudent thing to do before telling my family would be to check the status of my application on MyFile, York's platform for viewing the status of your application, where it remained rejected.
I think that I've gotten into York University Masters. I take a screenshot. I send it to my family, and another one I sent to my friends. I also post on Twitter that I got accepted to a master's, which is kind of the start of this whole deal. I get the second email, the rug pull email, around 2 to 3, but I'm already out at that point. I'm not checking my email, so I get back to the office around 5 to 6, and that's when I see that, in fact, it had been the rug had been pulled.
I want to share more of what we're hearing from York U. They shared a statement with us. It says in part, although the email message was not an acceptance letter, we understand that it may have caused some confusion to those who received it. A follow-up email was sent to each recipient shortly afterward to clarify the mistake. It explained the error, acknowledged that it likely caused some confusion, and apologized for the mistake. The school goes on to say that it's asking students who received this in error to disregard that message. And they're also saying that the status for these applicants, it has not changed. So if they were to go online to the kind of portal where they had applied, they would see that they have still been rejected. But certainly a lot understand all that disappointment that all these applicants would be feeling after getting those messages, Lena and Bakari.
Yikes. Melissa Duggan, live at York University tonight. Thank you, Melissa. Well, Ontario collected $260,000 from its one-day surcharge on energy exports to the United States last month.
Okay, on March 10th, the Ford government placed a 25% surcharge on electricity sent to 3 states in response to U.S. tariffs. It led to the Trump administration saying it would double tariffs on aluminum and steel before cooler heads prevailed, both sides backing down.
It is 5:19, 4 degrees. This is Live at 5 on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
It's day 20 of the federal election campaign. We're going to take a look at where the leaders are today. It's next.
Welcome back. A turbulent week on the stock markets ended on a high note.
So the S&P 500, it finished the week up 5.7%. The NASDAQ rose 7.2%. And the Dow climbed 4.95%. They're the biggest week-over-week market gains in years. Stocks fluctuated dramatically all week because of tariff uncertainty involving the European Union and China. Well, despite the gains on Wall Street, the swings in the markets and U.S. dollars falling values suggest fear from investors over potential escalations in President Donald Trump's global trade war.
And Mark Carney took the day off the campaign trail to act as prime minister and meet with his committee on Canada-U.S. relations.
Had a good, long discussion on several aspects. The first is the general situation. In the last week, there have been a lot of developments in terms of U.S. tariff policy, reactions from others, including China, a really marked tightening in financial conditions, a slowing, the initial signs of slowing in the global economy, impacts that we're starting to see unfortunately, in the Canadian economy, particularly in the Canadian labor market.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre campaigned in the Niagara region today and paid a visit to workers at Ontario shipyards in Welland. He announced details of his party's Canada First economic action plan.
First, this plan includes tax relief. We will cut taxes on work, investment, home building, and energy to unleash production and paychecks here in Canada. We'll cut income taxes by 15% for the average worker to save a working couple almost $2,000. With more money in their pockets, Canadians will be able to spend at local businesses, boosting employment in restaurants, corner stores, and hotels.
And NDP leader Jagmeet Singh spoke in the nation's capital today following a summit on progressive politics. Singh wants Canadians to vote NDP to hold power to account on Parliament Hill, he says.
Canada works best when one party doesn't have all the power. And when people have voted for New Democrats, they voted for a party and leaders that have gone to Ottawa and fought for them and delivered for them. Because people voted for us, we were able to deliver things like dental care and the first steps towards national pharmacare. Because people voted for us, we were able to hold the government to account. So I want Canadians to know, in this time of uncertainty, there's a lot of serious questions. What are we going to defend? How are we going to fight back? What do we need to protect? In all these questions, who's going to fight for you and who's going to hold the government to account?
It's 5:24, 4 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, we'll tell you why Hollywood actor Ryan Reynolds is making an appeal to the town of Coburg. Stay with us for that story. A touching tribute from Ryan Reynolds during a virtual meeting with the town of Coburg today.
Reynolds is urging the town to rename a local arena after an inspirational girl from the area. So the Deadpool star met 9-year-old Grace Bowen more than a decade ago. She was diagnosed with osteosarcoma. That's the same kind of bone cancer Terry Fox had, and died months later in March of 2015. And a heartfelt appeal, Reynolds says that Grace changed his life.
I'd met Grace backstage with Haley Wickenheiser. I was just really taken by Grace. Her name kind of said it all. Grace at some point came up and gave me a hug or something. I forget exactly what it was. But I just remember looking at this little girl who's going through so much, and her parents who, but yet she's going through so much, yet she has this sort of sense of calm and this sense of well-being. And just from the moment I met her that night, I said, I'm never, as long as I live, if I have a free moment for any kid who's carrying a bag of rocks around like that, or their parents.
This story gives me all the feels, and I feel like Grace deserves this. Reynolds says the town's Pond Arena was Grace's temple. She was an avid hockey player. Here's some pictures from that era. Coburg Town Council will consider the request during its April 30th meeting. I mean, they have to do this, right?
Yeah. It's 5:28, 4 degrees. This is Live at 5.
A man has serious injuries after suspects broke into a home near McCowan and Finch with hammers, a knife, and zip ties. It happened this morning. We're going to get a live update from the scene coming right up. Stay with us.
Several suspects armed with hammers zip-tied victims in a violent Scarborough home invasion. We're going to have the latest on the Brazen crime.
A crushing blow. Hundreds of auto workers prepare for layoffs as GM announces a shutdown at its Cami assembly plant in Ingersoll.
And York University is apologizing after it mistakenly sent out emails telling some rejected grad school applicants that they were accepted. We're live on campus with more on what went wrong.
You're watching Live at 5. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Latafat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. Okay, to Scarborough. This is where multiple suspects armed with hammers stormed a townhouse this morning.
Yeah, it's all very brazen. Police say all of the victims inside that home then had their hands bound with zip ties. Let's go live to CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ryan, who's outside that home near McCowan and Finch. When you listen to the details of this case, Steve, what stands out to you?
Well, first off, it's gut-wrenching to hear when you have 4 children that were involved, young children that were involved as victims of this home invasion, number one. And it certainly appears as though, and this hasn't come from the police, but given that there was property inside of that home, gold, I am told that one of the home owners was a jeweler and that he was known to do work at home with gold. It appears as though this was a targeted event. It appears as though the suspects knew that this property was in the home, and this is why they arrived here at 2:15 this morning. Sandhurst Circle is the location. There's a townhouse complex here in Scarborough, and I am told by family and friends who came by the scene today that there were 10 people in the home. 6 adults and 4 young children, and they were all subjected to the terror brought on by these multiple suspects at the 2:15 this morning. We heard from Toronto Police. They will explain describe what happened at 2:15 this morning, and we got reaction from neighbors as well. Here's more.
A group of assailants entered a residential unit. They produced hammers, and one of the assailants did produce a knife. And they zip-tied the occupants of the home. They zip-tied their hands together. Now, the assailants did assault one of the homeowners or one of the occupants that was in the house with the hammer and threaten that person with a knife.
It's very scary because we thought that that's a very nice place to live in, and when you hear just next door something like this happen, it scares you. I was not even asleep at last night, but I did not hear anything. I also came out for a walk around the same time because we usually walk late nights in this area. But right now I feel very scared about that. Yeah.
But you didn't see anything overnight? No police cruisers or any unusual activity?
Yeah, nothing. It was like a normal day.
One of the men in the home at 2:15 this morning was struck in the head with a hammer, and he is in serious condition in hospital. You're looking at the front door right now, guys. It's got a ring camera on it. It certainly does add to this whole suggestion that this was a targeted event. That might explain why the suspects went in through the rear of the home and not through the front of the home. And lastly, it was gold that was taken. It seems to be the property of choice by criminals this last few months that we've been reporting on, and that simply is because gold can be melted very quickly and it's not traceable once it's melted and sold off. So back to you guys.
Okay, CP24's crime analyst Steve Braun. Steve, thank you. Okay, also a man's fighting for his life in hospital. This is following a shooting in Scarborough.
That shooting believed to have happened around midnight near this road in the area of Warden Avenue and St. Clair Avenue East. Police say a man in his 20s showed up to a Toronto hospital with a gunshot wound and is now in life-threatening condition. Anybody with information is asked to contact police.
Well, a Toronto man has been arrested for allegedly posing as a teenage boy in order to have a relationship with a 13-year-old girl.
29-year-old Christian Sonato is facing a number of charges, including sexual assault and sexual interference. Durham police say the relationship began on Snapchat and eventually became physical before the victim found out his real age. Investigators have now released Sonato's photo because they're concerned more people could be impacted.
And London police are still trying to find the mother of a newborn who was left on a doorstep.
Police were called to a home north of the city's downtown on Wednesday afternoon. This after a baby was found on the front porch. Officers say that baby had a note attached to it saying the mother wasn't able to care for the child and asking someone to give the baby a good home. That baby was taken to hospital and is now in good health. Police say they're concerned for the welfare of that mom and they're trying to find her now. 5:35, 4 degrees, switching gears. Let's get a check on the evening commute with CP24's traffic specialist, Adjoa Nsiah-Bois. That Friday night drive, it's always busy, right?
Oh, yeah. No, it's always lovely and busy. You know, if you're making your way out, it's going to take you a while to get to where you need to be. And watching some problems, Lena, that are impacting the commute on the eastbound 401 in the collectors through Keele. Stalled vehicle with a police cruiser that does have the center lane occupied, still very busy and backed up from the 410. If you're on the 401 westbound, the jam-up start from approaching Victoria Park and they continue out to Dufferin. We were dealing with a collision in the collectors. Was the right lane blocked with a multi-vehicle crash? It just cleared. That's why there's a little bit of a gap as you make your way through that stretch. And Don Valley Parkway, a little bit of rain coming down, so delays impacted. It's slow from Don Mills up to the 401. And some good news on the QBW Toronto bound on top of the Burlington Skyway. Center lane was blocked to the stall. That situation cleared. Still dealing with a vehicle which went into a pole, which has shut down a stretch of Dundas between Dufferin and Gladstone. I'll send it back to you both.
All right, thanks, Adj.
Welcome.
Well, hundreds of workers are facing layoffs after General Motors Canada announced that it's temporarily halting production at its Cami plant in Ingersoll.
CP24's Lindsay Biscaya is following the story for us. She joins us with the latest. This isn't related to tariffs, but it is another blow to the auto industry, Lindsay.
Absolutely, and I think that's what's going through everyone's minds first off, Lena and Bakari, is that this might be related to those 25% auto tariffs that the U.S. has imposed on both Canada and Mexico. We've seen some results from those tariffs already at different plants, especially across Ontario and Quebec. That's where a majority of Canada's auto sector is. But we heard from GM today saying that this has nothing to do with the tariffs. It more so has to do with production at this plant. So this plant in Ingersoll primarily at this point is producing EV delivery trucks. That's the Bright Drop production. And apparently those trucks just really aren't selling as well as GM wanted them to. And so this whole move is to kind of halt production temporarily, at least for now until October, and to try to figure out exactly what's going on, how they can sell more of these electric vehicle delivery trucks, and then get things back up and running and continue to sell these electric vehicles, which again, just apparently, according to GM, haven't been selling that well. But as you mentioned, this is another blow to a community, to an auto plant that's already had a couple of hiccups and disruptions and rough times over the last couple of years. We heard from the union that represents many of these workers talking about that today. Here's more on that.
It was only about 3 years ago, we had 2,800 members. Now we're going to be down to about 600 production workers, 750 with our tradespeople. But we are a very big plant. It's a large plant. We have a lot of capacity. I know Leonard Payne, our president for Unifor, has been talking with the federal government, and I know they're looking at different avenues, talking to GM, and hopefully we can come up with some ideas to maybe expand what we build right now and add some different vehicles and give some more offers out there that hopefully get our members back to work.
So when we're talking about this temporary closure, it's kind of tricky. This is how it's actually going to work, Lena and Bakari, because yes, hundreds of people looking at not having any work starting on Monday. So this is according to GM. The company says it will shut down temporarily for 3 weeks as of this upcoming Monday. That's April 14th. It will briefly reopen for limited production in May, and then it will close again until October. And then after that, there will only be one shift at the plant for the foreseeable future. So you're looking at about roughly 450 people who are going to be laid off. And the union has said it's looking at ways to do that in the best way possible so that people who really want to keep their jobs can do so. So a lot really to go over here. We're getting a lot of reaction today from many political leaders within the federal campaign trail, but also provincially as well. Of course, Premier Doug Ford had some words to say about this announcement today of this temporary closure. Here's what he had to say.
We're going to be there to support them. I understand they're going to keep the one shift going as they come back. We want to build up capacity for them one way or another. Mm-hmm. And this is all about the federal government and the Canada Post requirement for their vehicles. Mm-hmm. They need to start purchasing those vehicles. Yep. Let's keep this plant open.
And so that's the optimism that we're hearing from GM as well. Obviously, this is not good news. A lot of people, especially who work at GM plants, various GM plants really across the country, are probably feeling a lot of despair today and a lot of worry about what's happening next. But we know that GM has said it is committed to this plant and to this vehicle. So that's the EV delivery truck. And so it hopes it can get things back up and running again in the fall. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Again, a temporary closure, at least for now. Lena,
right,
Bakari,
but one that we know will lead to many, many layoffs.
Yes.
Lindsay Biscay live in our newsroom tonight. Thank you, Lindsay. It's 5:40, 4 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And coming up, we'll tell you why York University is apologizing for emails it sent to grad school applicants. Toronto Public Health is warning of a potential measles exposure at Coca-Cola Coliseum.
The health agency has issued the warning for people who attended the venue for a concert on April 1st between 5:30 to midnight. They're advised to monitor for symptoms until April 22nd. Symptoms include fever, runny nose, cough, red eyes, and most notably, a red rash that could begin on the face and often spreads down the body.
Okay, bear with me. Congratulations on your acceptance.
Yeah, that is the subject line that some rejected grad school applicants received from York University recently. And now the school is apologizing for the confusing emails, saying they were an unfortunate oversight.
Okay, CP24's Melissa Duggan joins us live from the campus tonight with more on how something like this could happen. Melissa.
Yeah, Bakari and Lena, you know what it's like when you've gotten a message from the school about your successful application. You are thrilled. You're telling family, you're telling friends. Some of the applicants we've talked to say they posted it on social media. They were super excited about all of this, only to find out a short time later they were actually rejected from the grad school program they had applied to. What happened here is that these applicants actually had been rejected previously, and then suddenly, months later, they got a message about their successful application. So thinking, hey, something's changed. I am going to York U. I'm getting my master's. But unfortunately, the school is saying that those messages were sent out in error. It was information about a webinar that these successful, so they thought, applicants would be going to. Only turns out they're not going to be going there. It was fewer than half of all graduate program applicants that got this message in error. And it's exactly unclear how many students were involved with all of this. It's hard to get an idea of the numbers here, but certainly the emotions, that is something that is very clear. Here's what we're hearing from some applicants.
It's kind of a shocking thing for a big university to mess up on. You know, it's pretty like absurd incompetence on York's part, like their admissions department, you know, and I have seen now that I'm not the only one, you know, that it happened to so many people. It's really like, I think it speaks to a grander issue at York University.
I think it's a tremendous and careless error. Mistakes happen, but in a process that's as opaque as the grad school application process, where you throw hundreds of dollars for the privilege of having your application reviewed, I would hope that they would at least, you know, be transparent and careful in their communications.
So what is York U saying about all of this? They sent a statement to us. It says in part, although the email message was not an acceptance letter, we understand that it may have caused some confusion to those who received it. A follow-up email was sent to each recipient shortly afterward to clarify the mistake. It explained the error, acknowledged that it likely caused some confusion, and apologized for this mistake. Certainly, we heard in the voices of those unsuccessful applicants there just the disappointment of all of this. The school saying that just because people receive this email, it does not change the status of their application. Just a real mix-up here. And again, a lot of emotions at play, and certainly some disappointed people. Back to you.
Yeah, what a mess. Okay, Melissa, thanks so much for this. Well, Ontario mayors, they were in Markham today taking part in the annual Big City Mayors General Meeting.
Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow was among the many mayors participating in day 2 of the conference. With tariffs front and center of the discussions, a resolution was unanimously passed calling for stimulus funding from both the federal and provincial governments. Now, the funding helps fund infrastructure, including transit, roads, schools, and housing.
The Association of Municipal of Ontario have proposed a $3.5 billion per year over 5 years to have both the provincial government and possibly the federal government to support municipal infrastructure and social housing. It will create thousands of jobs. I think they're looking at least 13,000 jobs, and also, of course, stimulate the economy and really make housing more affordable.
We're going to be affected, and our cities are going to be affected like everyone else. If costs go up, that means we can do less with the same amount of taxpayer dollar. But we also have an ability to, and Burlington and many municipalities are looking at how can we ease the pain for some of our businesses, including things like interest-free tax deferrals, interest-free development charge deferrals.
It's 5:48, 4 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Today was the final trading day of the week. Coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at how turbulent the week was on the markets. We'll take a look at the latest numbers.
So a turbulent week on the stock markets, and then on a high note.
The S&P 500 finished this week up 5.7%. The NASDAQ rose 7.29%, and the Dow climbed 4.95%. They're the biggest week-over-week market gains in years. Stocks fluctuated dramatically all week because of tariff uncertainty involving the European Union and China. Now, despite the gains on Wall Street, the swings in the markets and U.S. dollars falling values suggest fear from investors over potential escalations in President Donald Trump's global trade war.
And Pierre Poilievre is rejecting allegations that the federal conservatives are guilty of campaign malpractice today.
Is it campaign malpractice?
No, I answered that question 2 weeks ago. Liberals and lobbyists want me to stop talking about high food prices. Well, I'm not going to do that. They want me to stop talking about the doubling housing costs during the lost Liberal decade. I'm not going to stop talking about that.
So here's what the Conservative leader is responding to. Premier Doug Ford's campaign manager, Corey Teneycke, accused Poilievre and his team of campaign malpractice yesterday after blowing a 25-point lead in the polls. Poilievre has been hosting large rallies attended by thousands of supporters, but with the Conservatives trailing the Liberals in public opinion polls, Teneycke has criticized Poilievre for not pivoting his campaign to focus on Donald Trump.
Along with that, the latest Nanos research poll for CTV News and the Globe and Mail shows the Liberals maintaining their 5-point lead over the Conservatives.
The Liberals are up by nearly a point to 43.6% support. The Conservatives are down just a bit to 37.8%. The NDP up slightly to 8.7%. The Bloc Québécois and Greens are down, while the People's Party of Canada is up only slightly, though.
And when it comes to which leader people want to be prime minister, Mark Carney is still the clear frontrunner with over 47%, but he's lost some ground while Pierre Poilievre continues to gain. The Conservative leader is now at over 34% support. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is down just a bit to 4.4%.
And some Conservative supporters at recent rallies have been questioning poll results. We asked Nick Nanos to respond to that criticism.
What it does show, and I think this is actually quite important, is that those rallies, whether they're for the Conservatives or the Liberals, but why don't we talk about the Conservatives, show how motivated the Conservative core is. You know, the thing is, for Conservative voters, they don't like the Liberals. They want the Liberals out of power. They're going to work hard to try to win the next election, and they are highly motivated. For the Liberals, they're more focused on Mark Carney. So think of one campaign driven by the leader and another campaign, the Conservatives, driven and motivated by wanting change and to get the Liberals out of power.
And for more on the federal election campaign, just head to our website, CP24.com, or the CP24 app.
Well, there has been another aviation disaster south of the border today.
A small plane crashed in Boca Raton, Florida this morning. Debris can be seen scattered across the road and on train tracks. A vehicle also crashed into a tree at the scene. It wasn't immediately clear how many people were on the plane or in the car and whether there were any survivors.
To New York City now, where the wreckage of a helicopter that crashed into the Hudson River yesterday, killing 6 people, has been pulled from the water. Officials say the sightseeing helicopter broke apart midair and crashed into the river 18 minutes into its trip. The pilot and a family visiting from Spain were killed, including 3 children. One witness says they saw the helicopter's tail and main rotor blades coming off before the crash.
It's 5:55, 4 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, we'll tell you about a subway closure for riders. More on that straight ahead. Welcome back to Live at 5. The Jays game tonight against the Baltimore Orioles has been postponed because of the weather.
Toronto was supposed to open a 3-game series against Baltimore after winning 3 of 4 games against the Red Sox. The game will now be played July 29th as part of a doubleheader. The Jays return to action tomorrow to kick off the series against the Orioles. First pitch is just after 4 p.m.
Another subway closure for riders to be aware of this weekend.
There's going to be no service on Line 2 between Ossington and Jane due to TTC track work. Runnymede, Hyde Park, Lansdowne, and Dufferin will be closed, but all other subway stations will stay open for customers to purchase fares and connect to service routes. Shuttle buses will run in place. Regular service is set to resume Monday at 6.
And GO trains won't be running on the Stouffville line this weekend. Starting this evening, Go buses will be running along the line, but will only stop at Old Elm, Stouffville, Mount Joy, Markham, Centennial, and Unionville stations, and then will run express to Union. If you normally use Milliken, Agincourt, or Kennedy Go station, you are advised to use the TTC instead.
It's 5:59, 4 degrees. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Thanks so much for watching and for joining us this evening. CTV News at 6 is coming up next.